From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
It looks like Palin, Beck, Sharon Engel, and the rest got their first target. Their wish for Second Amendment activism has been fulfilled.
Eric Fuller, shot in the leg and wounded in the back in the Tucson massacre. We'll hear him describe what happened and what he has to say about Sarah Palin, Sharon Engel, and Glenn Beck. Speaking of Beck, why for the last year has he obsessively targeted a 78-year-old professor named Frances Fox Piven?
Let me introduce you to the people who you would say are fundamentally responsible for the unsustainability and possible collapse of our economic system. There are really two people I've been telling you for a while. There they are, Cloward and Piven. Richard Cloward, Frances Fox Piven.
Richard Cloward is the late husband of Frances Fox Piven. Professor Piven will join us in our studio. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thousands of people have taken to the streets of the Tunisian capital of Tunis today to demand the resignation of President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali. Nationwide protests have erupted over the past month against unemployment, police brutality, and government repression under Ben Ali's 23-year rule. At least 66 people are believed to have been killed in the unrest. Today's demonstrations come one day after Ben Ali offered unprecedented concessions, including a vow to not seek a fourth term in 2014. The Tunisian president also agreed to allow political freedom, refrain from censorship and police brutality, and cut prices of food staples. In Paris, hundreds of Tunisians rallied Thursday to support the protests in their home country.
We want to start with the departure of Ben Ali and his regime and the installation of a democratic regime that is elected by the people and which represents the people and which defends its social and economic interests.
An estimated crowd of 7,000 demonstrators have surrounded Tunisia's Interior Ministry building today, calling for Ben Ali to step down. It's believed to be the largest anti-government protest in Tunisia since he took office in 1987. The youngest victim of the shooting rampage in Arizona has been laid to rest. Over 2,000 people packed a Tucson church Thursday to remember 9-year-old Christina Taylor Greene. The third-grade student had recently been elected to her school's student council. She was among the 6 people killed when the alleged shooter, Jared Lofton, opened fire at a Tucson grocery store on Saturday, also wounding 13 others, including Congressmember Gabrielle Giffords. Outside the church, hundreds of people lined the streets to mourn Christina's death. Arizona resident Ken Lachlan reflected on her birth date, September 11, 2001.
It's unfortunately that her life was booked in by 2 tragedies, the tragedy when she was born in terms of 9/11, and then this is a tragic event in terms of what's happened, So we're just here to try to do what we can, for the family and let them know that we support them, and it was such a heinous crime that was committed against their daughter, but that we're here for them.
Doctors treating Congressmember Giffords say she continues to make remarkable progress in her recovery. And what they called a major milestone, Dr. Peter Rhee and Dr. Michael Lamole of the University Medical Center and said Giffords is now able to open both eyes, move her legs and arms, and respond to visitors.
Gabrielle Gifford remains in critical condition, but as you've heard from the president yesterday, it is true. She did have spontaneous eye-opening yesterday, and she's becoming more and more alert at this time period. And she's making much more spontaneous movements as we have completely stopped all the medications that might blunt her mental status.
But I have to say this is a major leap forward. This is a major milestone for her, and we're hoping that she crosses through many more.
The Tucson shooting hasn't deterred a nearby gun show from continuing as scheduled exactly 1 week later. Organizers of the Crossroads of the West firearms event say they'll proceed at a site just 13 miles from where the shooting took place. The gun show was moved to Pima County after Los Angeles officials decided organizers have promoted irresponsible gun use. Crossroads logo depicts a crosshairs inside the letter O of the gun show. The U.S. military is denying it's holding the alleged military whistleblower Bradley Manning in solitary confinement. A U.S. Army private Manning has been held at the U.S. Marine Corps brig at Quantico, Virginia, since July on suspicion of leaking classified documents to WikiLeaks. Manning's attorney has claimed his confinement violates a military rule against pretrial punishment, and friends and family say Manning's mental and physical health has declined. But speaking to the New York Times, military spokesperson Colonel T.V. Johnson rejected the depiction as, quote, poppycock. Johnson added Manning's treatment is firm, fair, and respectful. Johnson says Manning's allowed to speak with guards and prisoners in nearby cells, although he's not allowed to see them. Johnson also acknowledged Manning remains confined to his cell for 23 hours a day. WikiLeaks, meanwhile, has announced it's donated $15,000 to Manning's defense fund. The figure is less than half the $50,000 initially pledged to help Manning last year. The Bradley Manning Support Network, which has previously criticized WikiLeaks for not following through on its pledges, said, quote, this donation from WikiLeaks is vital to our efforts to ensure Bradley receives a fair, open trial. The Environmental Protection Agency has revoked the permit for one of the nation's largest mountaintop removal coal mines. On Thursday, the EPA said Arch Coal's proposed Spruce No. 1 mine in West Virginia, quote, would use destructive and unsustainable practices that jeopardize the health of Appalachian communities and the clean water on which they depend. It's the first time in the last 40 years the EPA has revoked a coal mine permit under the Clean Water Act. The Spruce No. 1 mine has been the subject of controversy and litigation for over a decade. The United Nations is accusing forces loyal to incumbent Ivory Coast President Laurent Gbagbo of attacking its vehicles. On Thursday, the UN said 6 vehicles were targeted, including an ambulance whose driver and doctor were injured. Gbagbo has refused to step down after a disputed November 29th election. Rival Alassane Ouattara is widely believed to have won the vote. According to the UN, more than 200 people have died and over 20,000 have fled to neighboring Liberia as a result of post-election violence. In Sudan, officials monitoring the week-long referendum on southern Sudan's future say turnout has reached the required threshold to make the result binding. Residents of the southern Sudan are expected to vote to split from the north. Former President Jimmy Carter said turnout has hit the required minimum of 60%.
There is a requirement to legitimize the election of the referendum that 60% of those registered vote. And that criterion has already been reached. So there's no doubt about the legitimacy of the election as far as the number of votes cast.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has wrapped up a 5-day Middle East tour. Speaking to a group of Arab leaders in Qatar, Clinton urged democratic reforms to help counter Islamic militants.
If leaders don't offer a positive vision and give young people meaningful ways to contribute, others will fill the vacuum. Extremist elements, terrorist groups, and others who would prey on desperation and poverty are already out there, appealing for allegiance and competing for influence.
After imploring Arab leaders to enact reforms, Clinton went on to defend the Obama administration's refusal to apply meaningful pressure on Israel to end the occupation of Palestinian land. Clinton appeared to endorse Israel's rejection of Arab and Palestinian peace offers by echoing Israel's purported justification for killing over 2,000 civilians in its attacks on Lebanon in 2006 and Gaza in 2009.
We also have to convince the Israelis that a complete move for a two-state solution will not endanger their security. Any leader in this room knows that you often make decisions based on your own experience and history. And when the Israelis pulled out of Lebanon, they got Hezbollah and 40,000 rockets. And when they pulled out of Gaza, they got Hamas and about 20,000 rockets. So it's easy
In Brazil, the death toll from landslides and flooding in an area near Rio de Janeiro has surpassed 500. Many more people are feared to be dead in areas where a month's worth of rain fell in less than 24 hours. At least 13,500 people have been left homeless after flooding destroyed their homes. A new report is warning 2011 is poised to break a record for home foreclosures in the United States. According to RealtyTrack, 1.2 million homes are likely to be repossessed this year, topping the record of 1 million set in 2010. At least 5 million borrowers are currently at least 2 months behind on their mortgages. An American citizen currently held in Kuwait is claiming he was subjected to a harsh FBI interrogation this week. 19-year-old Ghulet Mohammed said he's been tortured and sleep-deprived since trying to renew his visa at a Kuwaiti airport last month. Mohammed says he's been extensively questioned about a 2009 study trip to Yemen and a later visit with family members in Somalia. On Wednesday, Mohammed said FBI agents subjected him to threats and rejected his pleas for an attorney while pressing him to admit to ties with militant groups. Mohammed has been unable to return to the U.S. since being placed on a no-fly list. And the Centers for Disease Control has released a new report detailing health-related disparities between various ethnic and social groups in the United States. The CDC says infants born to black women are up to 3 times more likely to die than infants born to women of other ethnicities. Drug-induced deaths increased in ethnicities from 2003 to 2007, with the exception of Latinos. The death rates were highest among non-Hispanic whites. In a reversal from trends 15 to 20 years ago, prescription drug abuse now kills more people than hard narcotics. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
And welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.